Everybody, I'd like you to meet my friend Brian. Brian, this is everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Meet everybody. Everybody. So Brian is a graduate of MNTC. He's also a very connected member here at Plymouth Covenant Church. If you've seen him around, you've probably seen him. You guys actually wouldn't. You know what? He's around on Saturday nights and on Sundays at 11.
Yep.
So these are the only people who probably don't know you.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. This is Brian. But Brian has a story that I just want you guys to hear. I just felt like it was really important that we hear Brian's story, where God has led him, how he ended up here, and what he's up to now. So we're just going to get into that.
Perfect.
Ready to rock and roll?
Yep.
All right. So, Brian.
Yes. We know each other so well. This is good.
Yeah, this is just a good friend. You guys are just going to listen. We're going to have a chat. You okay with that? All right. Tell us about your childhood.
So I grew up in Burnsville, Minnesota. It's pretty similar suburb like Plymouth. Pretty average childhood. My parents were together. There was no God in my life, so I grew up just trying to earn love through achievement.
Okay.
So one of my earliest memories was 3 years old, and I didn't know exactly what was going on, but it was a big argument in my grandparents' house, and it was actually my parents trying to get my grandfather to go to the VA treatment. So addiction was in my family, but I never saw it.
You didn't experience it.
Yeah, my dad would have a beer here and there. My mom didn't drink at all. So I think my parents believed that if they didn't talk about it,
it wasn't real.
It would somehow, would somehow skip me. I first had my parents did keep alcohol in the house.
Okay.
And I was always curious. I was a kid, 7 years old. I drank my first drink of tequila out of curiosity.
You didn't tell me this before.
I know, this is fun. You guys are unprepared for this.
He's never told me this.
She's totally unprepared for this. But yeah, I mean, and I think I binge drank throughout high school, and I knew it was a problem the minute I first started drinking. It was something that just gave me peace, and it just turned my brain off.
Yeah.
Which was the goal that I kept chasing for the rest of my life.
And you knew right away. Like you didn't know you had a family history of addiction, but you knew the minute you had your first drink, like this was going to be a problem for you.
Yeah, this was it. I had found something that made me feel good about myself.
All right, so high school, average high school experience.
Average high school experience, partying on the weekends with friends. I did sports. I did not get good grades, but I could pass every test, so I believed I was doing just fine. I didn't learn how to do any of the hard work. So when I got to the end of high school, I had a terrible GPA, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I hadn't planned for my future. So one day I walked into a Marine Corps recruiting station.
Because this is where, you don't got a plan, so let's commit our life to the military.
Yep, so take a drastic, impulsive step. I walked into the Marine Corps recruiting station, and I saw a Marine that was putting on his leather jacket and ready to go out and get on his Harley, and he said, "I'm going to the bar." And I was like, that's little teenage mind, I was like, that's pretty cool, and I could do that.
Which is a pretty accurate picture of what committing a life to the Marines would mean.
Yeah,
right?
It's
putting on the leather jacket.
Living in the suburbs, yep.
So you got a little bit of an inaccurate view of what it might be, but you enlisted. You decided that was just the next step.
I left the autumn after I graduated high school.
So you're still a kid?
Still a kid, yep.
Still a kid. Where did you go?
I went to MCRD San Diego for boot camp, combat training at Camp Pendleton. I got a really unique job. I was a Korean linguist.
Tell me about how much Korean you spoke before you joined.
0.
Okay.
They asked me, how do you feel about foreign languages when I went to enlist? I said, well, I'm getting a D in high school German, so not great. But I took a test, and they said, you qualify for this,
So you're a linguist.
There I went, yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know if this is encouraging for how our military works. I don't think I want to know this.
True.
But you were good at what you did.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, you got trained well.
I was
and
top
you were
of my
good
class
at
as a linguist, and so they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they did.
And Yeah, and with the Marine Corps, it was a culture. It was a culture of partying. It was a culture of getting in fights and drinking, and I mean, just it was pretty unhealthy. But I did get a lot of discipline out of that, so it did make some good changes. I got very into my addiction at that point. It was how I coped with all of the stress. I was a kid, like like we said, I had zero coping mechanism when I left home, and now I was in a constantly stressful situation. The language school I went to had the highest suicide rate in the military.
Oh my gosh.
So it was very intense, and I had no way to cope but to just start drinking at the end of the day.
Which was what everybody else was doing to
Yeah,
cope
yep.
too. Everybody around, like this was
regular.
normal. It's not like there was a bunch of people going, I think you might have a drinking problem. No, because
Yeah.
like they're all like,
It was encouraged. It was a test of manhood. It was who can outdrink the other person. So
Yeah.
if anything, it was to push to the extreme.
right.
Yeah,
So how long did you serve in the military?
4.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that service. Like,
that's hard to hear.
is it?
Yes.
How?
Just because of the way I got out of the military. So I mean, drugs are prevalent in the military. I was in a full-blown addiction at that point. And I failed a UA, so I had smoked weed, and they said 0 tolerance, and my master gunnery sergeant fought to keep me in, but there was no beating that. So I left. The thing that I was most proud of was suddenly a huge source of shame and regret, and it's really where the hiding started, because I came back here to complete isolation. I didn't know really anybody here anymore. Everybody had moved on with their lives. So I came back here, and all of my friends were across the country. I had a full-blown addiction, and I didn't want to talk about what happened. So that's like a recipe for disaster.
Well, and you come from a culture where your addiction and the way that you coped was how everybody coped, and it was normal.
Yeah.
And now you come back to a world where nobody thinks that's normal, right? Like they don't want that. That's not acceptable behavior. And so you have to hide all of that and all of the things that led to you wanting to do that.
Yep.
So 4.5 years of service, you come back and don't want to talk about what happened. And you move back to the Burnsville area, you're back in the cities, then what?
I just started working. I had some really good jobs. I would just kind of run myself ragged. I would go to work every day and just be thinking about when I could go home and start drinking and turn my brain off. There were periods where I was able to throttle it back a little bit, but then it would just come back stronger. So it was a just trail of jobs that had no purpose, and relationships that I would end up destroying through my addiction.
But you were successful at those jobs. Like, by all appearances, anybody who knew you, like, you showed up to work, you thrived, you got promoted, all of those kinds of things, and looked successful on the outside.
Yeah, if you weren't living in a home with me, or I wasn't honest with anyone, so I appeared to have everything going just fine.
Yeah. And your only hope, your only peace was to get home to the bottle as soon as possible, to try to shut it all off.
Yeah, I mean, my worldview was, what's the point? Like, I just go to work every day, and I come home, and I do it again the next day. Like, what does any of this matter?
Yeah. Well, and that echoes some of the testimonies, right? Like that hopelessness.
Yeah, just completely,
like life
just locked in a
without
cycle.
hope.
Yep.
Where was rock bottom?
Rock bottom was a combination of things. I had my longtime girlfriend and her daughter leave because they just couldn't live with me anymore. That's all I cared about, was getting home to drink at that point. And so then I ended up in my apartment in Burnsville by myself. and my dad ended up having a sudden heart attack and dying. And they couldn't get a hold of me, my family, and my mom ended up showing up at my apartment. And I was blasted. I was completely drunk. And I was so drunk that the last time I saw my dad in the hospital, I don't remember much of it. So I couldn't stay sober for his funeral. And that was the one thing my mom asked me to do. And
Yeah.
I knew, like, I can't stop. Like,
Because if anything was going to make you want to stop, like
Yeah.
that was going to be it. Like that was what you cared so much about that if you were going to be sober for something, it would have been your dad's funeral, and
yeah. And
you couldn't.
I couldn't make it happen. And I knew, well, this is something I didn't know what the solution was.
Yeah.
So my solution was I gave away my dog that I had since she was 5 months old. I don't have kids. I didn't, so she's like my kid. So it was that important of a situation for me to give her away. And then I ended up in a hotel in Burnsville with my Springfield subcompact, handgun, and 2 bottles of vodka with an intention of killing myself.
This is okay. It is hard to understand, I think, what that level of hopelessness feels like.
Yep.
And I know that it's scary to tell people about it. So thank you for sharing that. Praise God.
Amen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
You're here, right?
I'm here.
So what happened, right? What do you remember, like how did you decide, like, no, I'm not doing this?
I woke up and I had been blacked out and the gun was disassembled. It was in the sink filled with water. And I realized, like, if I couldn't do that, like, I had to get some help. I didn't know where to turn.
Right.
But I started being willing to ask the questions. And yeah.
So you don't remember what? We just know that God stepped in.
Yeah.
Something happened.
Yep.
God stepped in and had more for you.
Yep.
So you walk out of that hotel room, something's got to change.
Yeah, so I didn't know where to turn. So I called the only people that were still in my corner, surprisingly, after all of the selfishness and self-centeredness in my life. My mom and my sister were still trying to help. So I started my journey of going into treatments. And so I went through 12 treatments prior to Teen Challenge, 30-day programs. But the pattern was I would go into treatment and I would do really well, and I understood my addiction because of those treatments. But I would come out, and they would always say your aftercare is to go to AA, and I would go to AA, and they would tell me to turn my life over to God, and I would be like, okay, what does that mean? And they would be like, well, what do you think it means? And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I can't define God. And so, like, I would go, and then I would just be like, well, whatever. Like, I'm going back to work, and I'm tough. I can make it through this.
You're going to achieve. That,
Yeah.
like, childhood, like, thing
Yep.
that was given to you.
Yep.
You could solve it with achievement.
And so I would just work until I would run out of my own will, and I would relapse, and I would end up back in treatment, go to a sober house, go to AA, run into that same exact conundrum of, figure out what God is for yourself. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what this means. So I actually ended up having a really, really bad relapse. And I had a friend that was a graduate of Teen Challenge show up at my apartment, and I had always said, there's no possible way I'm going to Teen Challenge. Like, I won't even consider their short-term program.
Why? Why wouldn't you go to Teen Challenge?
Because it's known by everyone that it's a tough program. Like, they're gonna take your cigarettes, they're gonna take your cell phone, they're gonna, and I was just like, that's not happening. In fact, I showed up to short term with 10 packs of Newport 100s because I thought maybe they make an exception for me. Not
Did they
the
make
case.
exceptions? Any exceptions? No. Yeah.
So those are gone. But yeah, and And so I called other treatments, and the one that I had gone to 9 times said, if you come back, we'll commit you. So, so I said, all right, I guess I'll go to Teen Challenge. So, it was just, that was a moment of just surrender that has drastically altered my life. Because when I walked through the doors of Teen Challenge, I was at the lowest that I could think of, that I could reach.
How long, what's our timeline here for like post-military till you step in the doors of Teen Challenge?
The first time I stepped in Teen Challenge was 2021, so we're talking 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of back and forth, of like deep in your addiction and then multiple years of trying to get out of it, and now you land on the doorstep. You walk in the doors day one, what do you think?
I'm getting out of here.
Yep. And I'm out.
This is not for me.
Anybody else want to leave day one? Yeah, this is normal.
Everybody's way too friendly.
How dare they?
Really suspicious.
What jerks.
But that's what ended up drawing me in. I was at that rock bottom point where I was like, I'm worthless, and instead people were speaking life over me and telling me how much they love me and telling me and I was just like, how is this like a thing?
Yeah. So program after short-term program after short-term program, you get to this place and you're like, I need some God in this. Like this is this step, this is this thing I can't get by. And everybody's like, God is whoever you want God to be to you. And you knew that wasn't right.
Yeah, that didn't
from the beginning.
True.
So you get into short-term, you ask that question.
They said, go to Alpha. And I said, all right. And they said, there's pizza. And I said, I'm there.
I'm there.
I went through Alpha. I read A Case for Christ because somebody told me I'm very analytical and organized and logical, and so I needed somebody to break down some of those barriers for me. And that book helped me move through those parts of that. And then, it wasn't like a specific moment. It was a progression of like letting God in and having questions answered about Jesus throughout those 12 months.
Yeah.
With chaplains that had heard it all. Like you couldn't ask them a question that they were. They were like, well, all right, let's talk about it. And it just really it made it very real for me. And when I moved into TCLI, which is the leadership after that year of long term, I spent so much of that year going after God and spending time with God. I did Messenger Boot Camp, which really helped me sit in His presence and learn how to do different disciplines that put me in His presence. It was just
all those years God running after you.
Yep.
You met Him.
Yep.
Yeah, made the difference, right? Because here you are. Yeah. You glossed over a little thing.
Okay.
That we're going to go back to.
Yep.
Because you talked about, you went into short term, the 12-month program into TCLI. That wasn't the actual timeline, right?
Oh yeah. I took a 3-month pass.
Right, you guys have heard of the 3-month pass?
Yeah, that's a thing, right? So the first time I came into Teen Challenge, I did 5 months in the long-term program.
Okay.
I had a relationship that God needed to resolve on the outside of that, so I went and left for 3 months thinking, I'm now aware of God. I'm aware of God who God is. I hadn't really developed a relationship with Him yet. So that 3 months was very difficult.
Well, and this is the longest you'd ever been in a program, right? Every other program had been 30 days or less.
Yep.
And so here you are 5 months into something thinking, I got this. This is the most I've ever had, so I'm totally fine.
Yep. And 3 months later, I was back. I knew I had to come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
But tell me what it was like coming back.
Really difficult. The guys that I had been in the program with were still there. It was a lot of swallowing my pride. And I didn't want to walk into the chapel that first day and see those guys. And one of those guys came up and gave me a hug and said, welcome home. And I just, And I knew that seeing those guys graduate, I was going to go all the way through that.
Yeah. So you were done messing around at this point.
Yeah.
By the time you get to here, you come back in what, level 1, day 1, or what's that? What do they call it?
Day 1, level 1.
Day 1,
Yep.
level 1.
Yep, I did it to myself.
Dolo. That's everybody over here knows Dolo.
Yep.
But you knew day 1, level 1, that second time again, like I'm going all the way. I'm not messing around anymore. This is it. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I knew it was my opportunity to take 2 years of my life to figure out my relationship with God, and
Yeah.
how do you not take advantage of that
That's
when you've
that's
seen
awesome.
how it
Right.
works? Yeah.
So this is where it gets fun, because then this is how he meets Plymouth Covenant. Now we get introduced to Plymouth Covenant, right?
Yep.
And I'm excited about this because this is when I met you.
Yeah.
Yep, downstairs in the basement, loaves and
Loaves and
fishes,
fishes.
Saturday night.
Yeah. So the choir goes out usually like 3 Sundays out of the month, and then you get a Sunday where you get to come to church at your home church. And so this was my home church for my house. So I would be here Sundays, and then
At 9 o'clock, right? Like there's some of us in the house now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when we would go on choir trips, I would come Saturday night and go to Loaves and Fishes when that opportunity came up. And so I started to develop relationships with people at the church. I could name tons of names. And Abby's family. And there was a little group of guys from TC that we would do that pretty regularly. So yeah, it started to develop that relationship. And then Marked Men really hit it home for me.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the
Tell
partnership.
us a little bit about Marked Men for you.
Marked Men was a transformative weekend, and it's been a journey ever since. So you go for like a 44-hour weekend experience, and it was the first time that I had a lot of the stuff that I said on stage today. It's the first time I've said it. Last night was the first time I said it, and but like Marked Men was the first time that I really opened up to other men, became vulnerable, talked about some stuff that I didn't think was possible. And then
Which I think is powerful. You've been through treatment programs where the whole point is to talk about all
I've
this
been
stuff, and you
one-on-
didn't talk about that stuff for like years and years and years and
like
years. and you hit a
one-on-one
Marked Men.
therapy where I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to open up in this way because I don't know if I can trust this person who's and like
Yeah.
and Marked Men like gave me the opportunity, and the way that I've been received by those guys when just being fully vulnerable has made it okay. And
Yeah.
and then I get the opportunity to go back and staff and do that same thing in service, and it's been the most amazing experience of my life.
Yeah, because it's the ongoing stuff too, right?
Yeah.
The weekend was powerful, but now you'd mentioned last night, like you saw normal men, like normal. I don't know whoever defines that. My husband's one of these guys. I don't know. Like, but you saw average guys living their life, being vulnerable and working on their own stuff, and realizing like, hey, we're all doing this, right?
Like when I was in Teen Challenge, I think it becomes really difficult to think that you can do this outside of that setting. Like it's like, how do you
Yeah.
live a life centered on Christ in the real world, like
Yeah.
the real world? And
Yeah.
and they were doing it, and
Yeah.
we would meet weekly, and we would work on things, and I would see these guys like living lives dedicated to Jesus, and I would be like, okay, well, it's a thing, and
Yeah.
like it's possible.
Yeah. Shameless plug. There's a weekend coming up, right? Like.
24th through the
Yep,
26th.
yep.
of
You can still
January.
sign up in the app if you're interested. I didn't get the picture. Dang it. I was going to get a picture. We have a picture right here on this stage. You were baptized.
I was baptized, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us about that, because when you're at Teen Challenge, like you get plenty of opportunities to like decide, I'm following Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm
like
making
pretty
that.
regularly.
Yeah, like there's pretty regular opportunities to get baptized. You go through 2 years, right? Like you're there for a while, the long-term TCLI. Like what held you back, and why was this the moment?
So when I went to AA, I would do the steps, and I got to like step 9, and it would be like, make amends. And I never did it because I never wanted to go back and make amends to somebody and then relapse and have to come back and be like, hey, remember when I apologized for that stuff and then I did stuff again? It was the same thing for getting baptized. Like I wanted to be 100% sure that when I was baptized, my life was going to be about being sanctified and walking with Christ. So
Yeah.
I held off. I was like, you know what? I'm not like there yet. Like, and then I just, when at this church, with this body, like I just felt convicted that I needed to get baptized. I was ready, and
Yeah. It was a good day.
it was a really
I
good
remember
day.
that day. Like I said, choir weekend,
Very
baptism weekends they're equal for me because that one was powerful. And I remember being in the room and watching that. And
I'm
going,
glad
like,
we don't have that picture, honestly, but
I'm gonna find it for the next service. I'm gonna do that. You also do Celebrate Recovery here on Monday nights. We have a
Monday
Celebrate
nights.
Recovery that meets over in the refinery, and you have been going to that too, right?
yeah. So I really like Celebrate Recovery because it's a 12-step based, but it's biblically based. So you get worship, and it's anyone can come in there and
Okay.
deal with any hurt, habit, or hang up is the terms that they use. So it could be like if you're struggling with like codependence or like shopping, but it doesn't have to necessarily be like
Not an addiction.
alcohol and
Yeah,
drugs.
okay.
So it's just a really good space to just like be around people that are trying to be better people for Christ.
Powerful, supportive
Yeah.
community, which is what we need. Like this is, in my experience, and we've talked about this, like you graduate and you need community. Like
Yeah.
when you leave the program, you cannot do this on your own. You need community. And you found it in lots of different places.
This church has a lot of opportunities.
Last night I asked the question I meant to ask, how long have you
That
been
was
sober?
so great last night.
And instead it came out, how sober are you? Which is,
And I asked you to give me a scale from 0
how
to
sober
sober.
are on a scale of 1 to 10? How sober are you? No, how long have you been sober? What is your?
I will be 3 years in February.
That's awesome. That sounds pretty sober.
That's pretty sober.
That's pretty sober. So tell us about what you're doing now.
So right now I work for Rockbridge Treatment and Recovery, which is a new division of Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. We're out in Buffalo, Minnesota. So for years, people have been asking Teen Challenge to basically do this. It's a insurance-based 30-day program, but it has the gospel in it. So people that when I came to Teen Challenge and came into short term, I had lost everything. I was able to take that year and work on myself, but this is a chance to catch people further upstream. So it's a chance to get people into a 30-day program where they're introduced to the gospel. They have excellent clinical care. It's for people that can't fully step away from their life, but still need help.
Yeah.
So we've had people come in that are saying, I can't step away from my business. We'll lose everything. But they have access to their technology in order to maintain those healthy relationships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so Rockbridge Church, if you remember, earlier this year we did our Unleashing Hope campaign, and in Unleashing Hope we raised $25,000 that we gave to help finish the build out for Rockbridge. So they worked on that through the rest of this year, opened up in December,
December 9th, yeah.
and you said on Friday graduated your first client.
First client graduated, yes.
First client graduates through Rockbridge. Which is super exciting. We've been able to be a part of that. We got some books for the library. So you guys have kind of been hearing some buzz about Rockbridge, but now we wanted to fully introduce Rockbridge to you because it is up and going. It is doing a powerful work in our community right here where we're at. So I was really excited to be able to talk about this with Brian because I believe that as a church, we are uniquely postured to be the church to Rockbridge. They're in our neighborhood, right? Like the clients there are our neighbors, our friends. And so I just am super excited to see how this partnership will grow as this continues. Brian, on Sundays, usually at the 11 o'clock service, the clients can come and hang out with us here. And so they're worshiping with us. We really hope that they continue to worship with us after they graduate and step into Celebrate Recovery and Marked Men and some of these other things that will continue to support them. So we'll be talking more about that in a little bit. So tell us about so this is what I love about the whole full circle thing, about you're at Rockbridge.
Yep.
How is that? Why is that cool? Tell us about why that's so cool.
Because it's exactly, I wonder what it would have been like had there been a 30-day program that would have introduced me to the gospel.
Yeah.
All those times that I went and they would be like, what services do you want to experience while you're here? Do you want a dietitian, and do you want spiritual care? And I'd be like, yeah, spiritual care.
Yeah.
And I would see somebody once. There's a full-time chaplain at Rockbridge that is there to serve
Yeah.
people. It's what I believe was missing from my journey. I'm so grateful for Teen Challenge
Yeah.
when I needed that. But it's a hope that this will catch people before they ever land at those doors.
Right.
So,
Because as many times as you went back and asked the question and wanted to know about God and how he could impact your sobriety, and you got blank answers, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you could have gone to that program and somebody would have introduced you to Jesus, what a difference that could have made.
absolutely.
And so now God has brought you through all of that. And this is the thing, like 12 programs, man, that's hard, and that seems like it could have been a lot of wasted time, but we know now that God did that so that you more than anyone deeply understand the importance of the gospel and of Jesus in these programs. And you can passionately do your job because you know how important it is.
I can see the purpose to the whole thing, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. We are going to introduce you a little bit more to Rockbridge. We have a short video, and then we are going to get wrapped up.
Hey, Plymouth Covenant Church. My name is Jeff Jensen. I'm the regional director out here at Rockbridge Treatment and Recovery. I just want to say thank you so much for all the ways that you've partnered with Rockbridge. We are so excited to be able to help working adults and their families find freedom from addiction with an emphasis on incorporating the Christian faith into their treatment. It's a distinctive that sets us apart across the country. We're specializing in helping working adults and their families, and we're allowing clients to have access to their technology, their cell phone, their laptops, in order to maintain connections with their family and a healthy dose of work-related responsibilities. And so we're so excited that you guys have opened up your hearts and your arms and have supported us in prayer. Our clients are attending your Sunday morning worship services. They're attending your Monday night Celebrate Recovery services. And we are just so thankful for the people of Plymouth Covenant Church, who truly are the hands and feet of Jesus. Thank you so much. God bless you all. And may God continue to bless our efforts as we reach the lost with the gospel of Jesus.
We are so excited about Rockbridge and how we get to partner with them. On your way in, you received a card that's got a bunch of QR codes on it. The first one I want to talk about, we are starting up new program, new all of this, but we're giving it a shot, an Adopt a Night at Rockbridge. So you'll see that on the first QR code. There's a QR code, I think, coming up here too. There it is, to serve at Rockbridge. So Tuesday nights, moving forward, we would love for Plymouth Covenant to take over Tuesday nights at Rockbridge. We just need a handful of people who will commit to go out, play games, build relationships, just get to know people who are in their journey of recovery. So if you're interested in doing that, you can scan this code here, get some more information on what it would look like to just come and sit. No special requirements. You don't have to be qualified in any way. And so we would love to see you come and just hang out and build some relationships so that when they come to church on Sunday, they know somebody, right? They're going to have that relationship ongoing, which we know is super important for their recovery. The next QR code is mentoring. We didn't get to talk about mentoring. Brian had a mentor, and it was super influential in his recovery. And MNTC is always looking for more mentors. Who over here has a mentor? Yes. How much do you love having a mentor? Yes. Who is waiting for a mentor? All right, guys. We got a lot of people waiting for mentors. Plymouth Covenant Church has a history of stepping into this mentor place, and it is an area that we need to step up more in. So if you would love to know what it's like to just walk alongside somebody coming out of recovery, again, no qualifications. You're just a friend. You don't have to be their chaplain. You don't have to be their therapist. They got all those. That's all covered, right? You need a friend. Somebody who has lived a sober life, who can understand and help them walk through and make that adjustment and transition into the real world that we talked about. So if you feel God is maybe stirring you to be a mentor, I would highly encourage you to get some more information at the back table. choir weekend 4 years ago, I was sitting in these seats. I was actually sitting right over there. I remember God stirring. It took me until April to finally listen to him and go mentor, but I believe it is one of the things that was foundational in shifting my life and getting to me where I am now, just walking alongside people. So check that out. And then finally, if you are feeling like maybe those aren't ways you can help, but you are feeling God prompt you to give today to support the mission of MNTC, there is a QR code there for you to scan, also on your card. All donations given to our church deductible initiative that you see will be allocated towards MNTC today. So pray about that. That will be an option. These are just some ways, if you're feeling stirred and encouraged and challenged today, here's some ways that you can take some action steps.